Hi, my name is Jay Sugarman, and I want to welcome you to Innovation Showcase. The main purpose of this ongoing series is to inform viewers about exciting innovations and creative individuals across the fields of business, science, technology, education, and the arts. Today, via Zoom, we're fortunate to have as our guest Lyndon Barrois Sr. Based in Los Angeles, Lyndon is a highly accomplished high-tech animator, and he's also the founder and director of It's a Rapper Studios, where he uses discarded gum wrappers to create one-inch sculptures of famous athletes, others, and events, and then displays many of them in stop-action animation. During the program, we'll be learning why and how Lyndon's craftsmanship with gun wrappers came about. We'll view and discuss some of his engaging pieces, and in the process, come to better understand and appreciate how he goes about creating his unique and very appealing artwork. Let's start by meeting Lyndon and finding out all about how he turns discarded gum wrappers into stop-action animation. Welcome, Lyndon. So glad to be able to be here.
Thank you, Jay. I'm glad to be here myself. Thanks for having me.
It was fascinating to first read about you and your work with gum wrappers a couple weeks ago. Eager to hear more and have you inform viewers. Before we jump right to that, I also think it would be of interest to briefly share a little bit more about your background, professional and artistic interests, please.
Wow. Well, let me see. I wear a few hats under the art umbrella. Because I try to be very careful how to not like define or just pigeonhole one thing, because it is a vast umbrella. And so, I'm a visual artist, but I'm also by profession, and most of my professional career I've been a character animator and animation director in feature films and some television work. I started out. I started my art career, my practice in at Xavier University in New Orleans. But even then, in New Orleans, I had before I even went to Xavier, I had two posters published. one
Mm,
for um, one for the Boston Marathon in 1985, and then the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival in 1986.
mm,
And then the Pope visited, so I had a poster also done when the Pope visited in 1987.
mm.
And I think that was the year I actually started Xavier. So I was really, my career at that point was focused on, graphic design, and communication design. But all that time I was making the miniatures because I started making the miniatures when I was about 10 or 11 years old in New Orleans, and I was basically making drivers to put in Hot Wheels cars
Mm.
because the cars are so cool, the doors open, the hood, the trunk, everything, but there's no drivers in them. So it never made sense to me that they went that far with these cool cars. I mean, down to, what model it is, the hubcaps, everything, but there's no drivers. So when I started making drivers for these cars, I never stopped making the figures. And it was so much fun, because as a kid, you're always doing art. You're drawing stuff, you're making, whatever you get your hands on. And so I would do out of wire and, discarded phone wire, clay, aluminum foil, anything, and I drew paper, and I even would fold and twist that, but and so my mom, all the gum my mom chewed, when she would discard the wrappers, I picked it up one day and just realized if it's foil on one side and paper on the other, and they're perfectly glued together and not coming apart, is that if I sculpted it with the paper side out, I could color it.
Mm.
And right there, the light bulb just went off. And so I started making the people. I started making drivers. And then the people led to boxers. And then the boxers led to other athletes and entire teams. And so I'm just, again, just entertaining myself making toys all through junior high, through high school, and even into college until I finally showed my professor, John Scott, who was, a really famous sculptor. He was the first MacArthur Grant winner that I ever knew.
Mm,
He won that while I was studying under him, and I was just like fascinated.
wow.
And so when I finally showed it to him, he basically says, like, dude, I don't think you know what you're sitting on. Like, this is sculpture. Like, what? And I didn't realize everything I was learning from John, I was infusing into this sculpture because you can see the progression and the evolution of look at these really amorphic and abstract looking things started to really take shape into proportion. And color and like the design of the uniforms, everything, like the detail that I started to pay attention to. And like I say, the anatomy was really showing through. And to me, I was just making toys. I'm having fun, just making it a hobby. And John's like, no, man, this is art. Like, this is sculpture. Like, he's like, I'm a sculptor. What do you think you've been doing? And so then I find that's when I took it seriously. And so trying to, I hope I'm not going on too long because it's a lot.
Yeah, so we can show an example before we hear more about the process.
Yeah.
Here we have a great one of Kobe. How did this come about?
Well, Cole, that was a piece, ironically and morbidly enough, this is such a weird story. I started designing a piece, and you can see, I mean, if you're looking, in my studio here behind me, there's the Naismith trophy. Because, it's a replica. And so I was designing a piece that I was going to do, in honor of the Lakers. I've been here so long. I've been here through a few championships. So I was going to do a whole retrospective of that and started to research the piece and research all the players and personalities and everything. Because also a good friend of mine is Lawrence Tapner, who's the announcer,
Hmm.
been the announcer for the Lakers for 42 years. And so was just starting to, talk to LT and pick his brains and all these things. And this was January. Well, I started doing this in I think I started researching this about August 2019, and started, collect all the data and sculpting some players, not painting them, just the raw sculpture. And then January, got around to January, and I had to go on a trip to San Francisco for some business. And that morning, while we're having breakfast,
Mhm.
got the news on my phone that, the helicopter crashed. And oddly enough, the night before, I was in Calabasas at a friend's house watching, I'm not sure if we were watching some, I think it was boxing. It was it was just some big fight. Some people were watching. Maybe, and so that was a Saturday night, yes. And then Sunday morning when it happened, when I was in San Francisco, and it just was like the weirdest thing because the helicopter crashed like a mile or so from where we were at a friend's house in the hills.
Ah,
And so I just said, I put the brakes on that, but I said, if nothing else, I have to at least do Kobe. And so I made this piece and I put it in a nice display where it's on a turntable where he's just elevated and it's just slowly turning in this pose. And then did a little animated clip, and with the clip, it's just a bunch of it in different poses in progress. I didn't animate it per se like I usually do because I just didn't want to. I didn't want to focus on one play that he did or a few. I just,
hmm.
so I just put him in this classic pose and then composited the face onto it. And then it had an exhibit of it where you have the piece and him turning, and then I had a camera on it, an HD cam with a screen next to it. So you can actually see it in miniature form in its original form and then life size as it's turned.
Oh, fabulous,
Yeah, so it
fabulous.
was really beautifully displayed. And he, it was just yeah, and I just I still have the idea to do this piece, but I just stopped right there and just like everyone else, just
Yeah, well, it's a wonderful
digest it.
tribute, and the detail is incredible.
Thank
Before we enjoy several other pieces,
you.
you've assembled a wonderful video clip
Mhm.
showing the beginning, just taking a wrapper and how you molded, sculpted into one of these figures eventually. So we're going to roll that clip, and feel free to add any commentary explaining as we're going.
Sure. But yeah, I just, kind of self-explanatory. I just take them, I feel them out. It's very tactile things.
That's
So
for sure.
yes, and the grading of the papers are different. They're not all the same, at least the foil. And so, crush it a bit, get it a little more lucid, and just go for it. So you'll see, there's no tearing at all. There's
Yeah.
tearing weakens it. And so, yeah, it just goes from legs to torso to arms to neck, you know. Um, and yeah, I think it takes just to do a raw sculpt, it'll take about 5 minutes. A lot of
Has
times
your
when I
has your
do,
technique changed over the years?
no, it's basically the same. It's
Wow.
the same thing. Yeah. It's just a lot of practice. So I I've been doing it for so long. You know.
No, it's way more than second nature to you, I know.
Yeah. 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 And even now, like, I've not something I would never say it's something I perfected, because even now, I still make mistakes. There's still not everyone makes the cut. And they're all, I really try to get them specific to who they're going to be. Whether it's sports, like who the athlete is, what position they play, and and then because they're all portraiture. They're real people. So whether it's sports, or civilian life, or whatever, like everyday life like us, or even news figures in politics or history, like whatever. I really do it to accurately portray who the subjects are. And so when you see them, the person just from the pose or the uniform they're wearing, the suit or the dress, the yeah, the fashion they're in, the wardrobe, whatever, and just their gestalt, their entire persona. So you would know without even seeing the face, you would know who that
Mhm.
person is and what era that I'm depicting, what moment in history. That's very crucial too, and that's why I'm so attentive to the detail, because I just want you to know it immediately.
What are some of the challenges you might face in creating a figure?
Some of the challenges? Um, that's a really good question. I guess for me, when I make assumptions of what things are going to be simpler than others, because when you see, like, say, when I did a piece. Yeah, I've done quite a few now, so I'm just trying to remember. I did a piece on that required so much detail. Oh, yes, the chess set, the COVID chess set.
Mm.
A piece had so much detail. And, because it's really just a portrait of America about what we were going through at the time. And I mean, everything from, suits to EMT uniforms to doctors, and, labor workers, the whole shebang. It just runs the spectrum of America. I did that piece and just thought, wow. I'm sorry. And then the one I did after that was this rare LA, it's homage a piece called 19, an homage to the LA Rams, the history of Black players in the LA Rams from 1943 to 2022. So everything uh, up to, leather helmets, up to air, Aaron Donald, like the moderns.
Hmm.
And so all the detail that went into that piece as well, from players before there were, hard shell helmets and face masks up to what, currently. The detail that went into that piece was just, I mean, it was an exhausting amount of detail. So
Yeah,
I
no.
figured, okay, so then the next piece I knew I was going to be making for this show in Seoul, Korea, called Soul Sisters, an homage to Florence Griffith Joyner and Jackie Joyner Kersee in the 5 Olympic gold medals they won in
Hmm.
Seoul Olympics. So I say, okay, well, these women they're going to be a bit simpler, because I don't have to do all this number with the pads and the numbers and stripes and this making the different helmets. Because I'm telling you, making helmets are a nightmare. See, this takes 5 minutes to sculpt. It'll take a few more hours to paint, obviously. It could take upwards of, you know, a few hours to a day or so, depending on how much detail I put in these guys, or a few days. The helmets themselves can take, 6 hours.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, just to sculpt them and then sculpt the face mask and all that stuff, then paint them. It's a process. So all that detail. So I figured, okay, these women will be a bit simpler. And boy, did I underestimate that. Because when you really focus on the detail in the uniforms these runners wear, and then the numbers on the front and the back, and then the logos, all the insignia on the outfits, and then the hair, and then the ribbon in the hair, and the shoes, like it's just as much as anything else. And the challenge just to pull that off. And then when you're doing things like broad jumps and hurdles, just a challenge to really execute all that in motion and still, like because the figures are floating around with people. I mean, it's just doing a lot. So and then other challenges are when I decide to animate them, how I'm going to execute certain things. Because players take flight, athletes take flight a lot. Even when it's tennis, and I did Althea Gibson jumping and hitting the ball. So there's quite a bit of rigging involved to get those actions right, and then a lot of paint out.
Lyndon, for the sake of time, we're gonna move ahead and show a very short clip of you painting one of the figures, and then followed by another short clip with some of the animation, because we want to save time for just sampling some of the other items in your collection. So let's look at the painting with some nice background music.
Yeah, so this is the World Cup piece I did called Food Ballet. That's that it premiered at the Perez Museum in Miami, and as part of the World Cup show. And but now this piece is owned by the LACMA, the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. Museum of Art. It's part of their permanent collection. This is a really fun one to do, because I animated a few of these. I animated a few of the moments in this piece. So it recreates great moments in World Cup history between 1970 and 2016. Those are really fun pieces. I think this is one of the pieces I animated. Yeah, there he is.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. How long did that take you in real time?
Oh, the piece itself, the entire, or just painting that?
Painting.
Because that's definitely a few hours there.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
really time lapse down, but that's a few hours. Yeah.
Well, let's see a very short example of some of the animation.
Yeah, the old Zidane piece.
Oh, fabulous, fabulous. And
Yeah,
again, just because we want to enjoy some of your work. A quick word as we sample as many as we can in
Mhm.
the 7 or 8 minutes we have left.
Right. So this is James Harris. This is part of the LA Rams piece 19. And so this is, James Harris as being the first black starting quarterback for the Rams in the 70s.
Nice,
So that's
nice.
this part. And then there's Althea Gibson, and that piece was made for a clip in a next Netflix animated short. And this was part of that. Yeah. So,
Fabulous,
yeah.
fabulous.
Yeah.
Just the muscle tone that you get is incredible.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Shit.
Yeah. And that's a piece, that's a recent commission. That was for a birthday gift. Yeah, that one, oh, I love making horses. I just love thoroughbreds. And then, and even the jockeys themselves, because they're such incredible athletes. And so this was a really fun piece to make. I did this one last year, I believe. It's a recent piece.
Nice, nice. Yeah.
And their soul sisters. So you can see, the women, it's everything from the relay races to the 200 meters to the javelin throw. You see shot puts, you see the long jump. I mean, that piece was so much fun to do. It was
Oh,
such
your creativity is, it's incredible to watch and process. And then something like this, the final product and the number of variations
yeah.
that you keep coming up with to display your work.
Wow, thank you, Jay. Yeah, it's fun stuff. Yeah, and that's a detail. That's one of the pieces from COVID chess set. So it's an EMT workers.
Mm,
Yeah, and
nice.
again, like, and then there's a National Guard guy just giving out groceries.
Mm,
So everything to the mask, down the
yeah.
COVID
Yeah.
face, everything, the orange gloves. Yeah, and the roll of toilet paper.
Oh, yeah. Right. It's incredible.
I mean, just fun stuff. The doctors, you know, yeah, and there you go, chefs and
Mm,
this piece was that piece is, and then next, yeah, the next slide you show, yeah, the elderly and in their homes, I mean, all
mm.
this was, like I said, this was telling the story, and that story is still telling itself,
Yes, indeed,
yeah.
indeed.
And there's the piece in its entirety, red states versus blue states.
Yeah,
Yeah,
coming up again.
yeah, yeah, it never ends. And then this piece, yeah, this is a piece that was as part of Glenn Kino's show at the Massachusetts MoCA. And this was there for 18 months. So this is I recreated like 18 scenes of protest history. And this is the Edmund Pettus Bridge Walk, with John Lewis leading the way. And so
Mm,
the way that was displayed, they were hung on these floating asphalt rocks, and a pin light was shined on them, and so the shadows were cast like this in life size onto the wall. So as you walk through the exhibition, your shadow becomes part of the pieces of the exhibition itself. So it's very interactive that way. That was a fun to do. Big,
most definitely.
such a major show that Glenn did. Yeah.
Could you speak a little bit? I mean, you've touched recently on some of the examples on how you use your art for different causes, different activism, say,
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah, the work, I just like to do work that has some social impact. And just tell stories of history. And because it's bizarre now how so much of it is trying to be erased away. It's 2024.
Mm,
Like, what are we doing? So we're trying to rewrite history, trying to erase history. It's just bananas to me. So I just feel as artists, it's part of our duty to keep that history alive and tell these stories and educate. And if you not only educate other people, but educate ourselves, because, it's too important. And so, yes, I like to do work that has that sort of, that social and economic, educational, all that impact, to just show where we've been, where we're going, what, yeah, I mean, it's our story. And so and like I say, it is portraiture. So this portraiture really, I mean, is also tells a story of, the world and everything. So,
Now, they're wonderful artifacts that document both the past and the present, for sure, for sure. What's some of the reaction and feedback you get to your work?
oh, on it, people appreciate it on the surface, just for like seeing it in the context of sculpture and then recreating these moments. But then the biggest impact comes when I tell them what it is, if they don't know. Because, so, it's getting, because even now most people don't know. And so, it's getting to the point now where hopefully that, it would become recognizable. I mean, oh my God, that's his work. We know what that is. But if they just think first, they, well, it's in twofold. If they see it on film first, they think they're really big figures, like not normal, like 6 to 9 inch stop motion puppets. And then when I take them out and I'm in festivals and I show them, they just lose it, But then even in exhibition, when I tell them, no, these are chewing gum rappers, they just like, what? They can't believe it. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, I mean, these are rappers. So I'm constantly being encouraged to, even when I do the films, like to animate the rappers coming, taking shape, because I just do them just as story and as characters already. But I have to do them like from scratch, and even I might have to do that with exhibition so they see what it is first. Because I mean, this is the size of these guys.
That's incredible.
It's
Just the
just,
dexterity that you have is amazing.
and this is the other thing you got to see. So if I put this in camera, see, the helmets do come on. Yeah, yeah.
Really remarkable, remarkable.
So yeah, so each player, yes, gets fitted with a hat. Yeah.
Well, so glad you started at a young age and have been inspired to continue it to this day.
Yeah.
We're all the beneficiary of your work, so
Oh,
thank you.
that means a lot.
Lyndon, unfortunately, we've come to the end of the program. Want to thank you so much for being here, explaining the process you go through, showing us just a sampling of the many things you've created and will continue to create. We'll have contact information in the credits, and look forward to following upcoming endeavors.
Well, thank you, Jay. I really appreciate this, man. It's been fun. It's been great talking to you and, just sharing this, and I hope we, covered enough, because there's so much to talk about.
Oh, fabulous introduction for sure. And we'll keep in touch with your online presence.
Very cool. Thank you, my man.
Also want to thank those of you watching for joining us, and hope you'll be able to tune in next time.